Pictures of my daughter covered every inch of the wall. Hundreds of them. Each one marked with a date, a time, a location. Target departing residence, 8:30 a.m. Target arriving at Hospital Cafe, 3:15 p.m. My hands were shaking so badly. I could barely hold my phone to take pictures of what I was seeing. And then I heard footsteps upstairs. The front door opening. His voice calling out, "Deborah, are you home?" My heart stopped. He wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow. I was trapped in his basement, surrounded by evidence of something terrible, and he was coming to find me. How did I get here? How did my daughter's perfect marriage turn into this nightmare? Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how a predator works. They don't look like monsters. They look like the most trustworthy person you've ever met. My name is Deborah Mitchell, and I'm 65 years old. I taught elementary school for 37 years in Portland, Oregon, before retiring. I thought I'd seen everything in my life: good students, troubled students, difficult parents, wonderful parents. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what I discovered in my son-in-law's basement. It was a year after my husband passed away when my daughter Jennifer made the offer. "Mom, come, live with us," she said over coffee at my kitchen table. The house is huge, 5 bedrooms, finished basement, and Emma would love having Grandma around. Jennifer worked as a nurse at Providence Hospital, often pulling night shifts. Her husband, David Richardson, was an IT consultant who worked from home most days. Their 10-year-old daughter, Emma, was a sweet child who needed supervision after school. The house in the suburbs was impressive. A beautiful 2-story colonial with a finished basement David used as his home office. Everything seemed perfect. David welcomed me warmly. Emma was thrilled. And Jennifer seemed relieved to have help with childcare. But about a month after I moved in, I started noticing something strange. Every afternoon at 2 p.m., like clockwork, David would disappear into the basement. At first, I assumed he was working video calls with clients, maybe, or focused project time. But the sounds that drifted up through the floorboards weren't typical office sounds. "Yes, I've confirmed it," I'd hear him say on phone calls. "The target maintained the same pattern today." Target? What target? And there was something else. The way David watched Jennifer's movements. When she'd set down her purse, his eyes would track it. When she mentioned going out, he'd subtly ask about timing, routes, companions. It wasn't the casual interest of a loving husband. It was surveillance. One morning, I watched him check Jennifer's phone while she was in the shower. Just picked it up from the counter, quickly scrolled through something, and put it back before she emerged. My stomach turned. "Grandma," Emma whispered to me one afternoon while we were baking cookies. "Dad only goes to the basement when Mom isn't home." "Oh? Why do you think that is, sweetie?" "I don't know. But he has lots of pictures of Mom down there. Pictures where Grandma and I aren't in them." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. My daughter had been married to David for 3 years. He'd always seemed like such a good man, attentive father, supportive husband, successful career. Everyone in the family loved him. But something was very, very wrong. I thought about my late husband, Tom. He'd been a detective for Portland PD for 25 years before retiring. He always told me, "Debbie, trust your instincts. When something feels off, it usually is." My instincts were screaming now. The next morning, David left the house. Unexpectedly, said he had to drive to Seattle for an urgent client meeting. Wouldn't be back until tomorrow evening. Jennifer was working a double shift at the hospital. Emma was at school. I was alone in the house. The basement door seemed to stare at me from across the hallway. Tom's voice echoed in my head. When you suspect something, you investigate. You gather evidence. You protect the people you love. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. It turned easily unlocked. The stairs creaked as I descended into David's private domain. The office looked normal at first. Desk, computer, filing cabinets, bookshelves. But then I turned to look at the far wall, and my blood ran cold. Photographs of Jennifer covered the entire wall. Not family photos, surveillance photos. Jennifer leaving for work. Jennifer at the hospital. Jennifer having coffee with friends. Jennifer at the grocery store. Every single image had a label underneath with precise details. November 3rd, 2024, 8:47 a.m. Subject departing residence. November 3rd, 2024, 3:22 p.m. Subject meeting, friend at Starbucks, downtown location. November 3rd, 2024, 7:15 p.m. Subject returning home. My legs almost gave out. This wasn't a husband keeping photos of his wife. This was systematic surveillance. I forced myself to move toward the desk. My hands shook as I opened the first drawer. Inside were professional camera equipment, telephoto lenses, small recording devices, GPS trackers. The second drawer contained thick file folders. I pulled one out. The tab read Subject Behavioral Analysis. Inside were detailed charts tracking Jennifer's routines. Every Tuesday at 3 p.m., she met her coworker Sarah for coffee. Every Friday evening, she had dinner with her college friends. Weekend mornings, she took Emma to the park. Her entire life, documented and analyzed like she was. Like she was what? A criminal? A suspect? Then I saw the computer screen. David had left it on, probably rushed out too quickly to shut it down properly. A document was open. Weekly surveillance report. Subject Jennifer Richardson, 34. RN at Providence Hospital. Client Margaret Chen, period, October. 14/20/2024. Findings, no evidence of infidelity. No suspicious male contacts. Daily patterns consistent. Family relationships stable. Client, someone was paying David to spy on my daughter. I scrolled through previous reports. They went back months, no, years. Almost 3 years of surveillance reports, all addressed to this Margaret Chen person. But here's what caught my attention. The recent reports were remarkably brief. Just a few lines. No suspicious activity. Continuing observation. The earlier reports, from 2 years ago, were incredibly detailed pages and pages of Jennifer's movements, conversations, interactions. Why had the reports become so sparse? Was David hiding something from his client? My mind was racing. I needed help. I needed to understand what was happening before I confronted anyone. If you're finding Deborah's story compelling, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support helps us share important stories like this one. Now, let's continue. That's when I heard it. The front door opening upstairs. Deborah, are you home? I heard footsteps. Oh, God. David's voice. He'd come back early. I frantically tried to put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Closed the file folders. Made sure the computer screen showed the same document. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might explode. His footsteps were coming down the stairs. Deborah, are you in the basement? I stood frozen in the middle of the room, nowhere to hide, surrounded by evidence of his crimes. David appeared at the bottom of the stairs. His expression changed the moment he saw me, from surprise to something cold and calculated. Deborah, he said slowly, his voice completely different from his usual warm tone. What are you doing down here? I was looking for cleaning supplies, I stammered. I thought I'd clean up a bit. His eyes scanned the room, checking if anything was out of place. I specifically asked everyone to stay out of my office. This is my private workspace. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Cleaning supplies are in the upstairs hall closet. They always have been. His voice was ice cold now. How long have you been down here, Deborah? The way he said my name made my skin crawl. This wasn't the friendly son-in-law I knew. This was someone else entirely. I just came down a minute ago. I see. He moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back. Deborah, I think we both know you saw things you weren't meant to see. My mouth went dry. David, what's going on? Why do you have all those pictures of Jennifer? Who is Margaret Chen? His jaw clenched. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he sighed. You should sit down, he said. This is going to take some explaining. I didn't sit down. I wasn't about to make myself more vulnerable than I already was. Start talking, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And don't even think about lying to me. I saw everything. David ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of stress I'd never seen from him before. The perfect facade was cracking. Margaret Chen is Jennifer's college boyfriend's mother, he began. My mind reeled. Jennifer's ex? You mean Michael Chen? They broke up years ago before you even met her. 5 years before, David confirmed. Jennifer dated Michael for 5 years during college and after graduation. But she ended it. Why? Because Michael had a gambling problem. And when Jennifer tried to help him, he became violent. She finally got the courage to leave him. 2 years after they broke up, Michael died in a drunk driving accident. I remembered Jennifer mentioning an ex-boyfriend once, years ago, but she'd never given details. I'd assumed it was just a bad breakup, the kind everyone has in their 20s. What does that have to do with you? I demanded. David's expression darkened. Margaret Chen blamed Jennifer for her son's death. She became convinced that if Jennifer hadn't left Michael, he'd still be alive. She wanted revenge. Revenge? What kind of revenge? She hired me, David said quietly. 3 years ago, I was working as a private investigator on the side. IT consulting didn't pay enough, and I had debts. Margaret offered me $500,000. My hand flew to my mouth. 500,000, 100,000 up front. The rest when I completed the job. What job? But I already knew. The horror was sinking in. Get close to Jennifer. Marry her. Then find evidence of infidelity to destroy her reputation and get custody of Emma. Margaret wanted Jennifer to lose everything. Her marriage, her daughter, her career, her dignity. I felt like I was going to be sick. You married my daughter. For money, to ruin her life. That was the plan, David said. His voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. Was? I caught that immediately. Are you telling me you changed your mind? He looked directly at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine emotion in his eyes. 6 months into the marriage, Emma called me Daddy for the first time. She was crying because she'd scraped her knee, and she ran to me instead of Jennifer. She hugged me and said, Daddy will make it better. And something broke inside me. So you decided to become a human being with a conscience? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. I know how it sounds. But yes, I realized I actually loved them, both of them. And Jennifer, she's an incredible person. Everything about her is genuine. I started seeing why Michael fell apart without her. She's the kind of person who makes everyone around her better. Except you apparently were immune to that for the first 6 months, while you were surveilling her like a criminal. David flinched. I deserve that. I deserve everything you're thinking about me right now. But Deborah, for the past 2 years, I've been sending Margaret fake reports, short ones with no real information. I've been stalling, hoping she'd eventually give up. While taking her money, I stopped taking payments after that first 100,000. I've been using that money to support the family, but I haven't touched anything else from her. I struggled to process this. Does Jennifer know any of this? No. God, no. She has no idea. And you thought you'd just… What? Keep this secret forever? I don't know. David's voice rose for the first time. I don't know what I was thinking. Every day I wake up next to her, I feel like a fraud. But I also know that telling her would destroy everything. Emma would lose the only father she's ever known. Jennifer would be devastated. So I just kept going. My mind was spinning. This man had built my daughter's marriage on a foundation of lies. He'd been hired to destroy her. Yet according to him, he'd fallen in love and changed sides. Could I believe him? Should I? I need proof, I said finally. I need to see everything. Every communication with Margaret Chen. Every report you sent. Every penny you received. All of it. I'll show you everything, David said. But Deborah, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell Jennifer? I thought about my daughter. 3 years of marriage to a man she loved, never suspecting the truth. A daughter who adored her father. A life built on deception. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I promise you this, if you're lying to me now, if there's even one more secret you're hiding, I will personally make sure you lose everything. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am, David said quietly. Now show me everything. And I mean everything. For the next 3 hours, David laid out the entire conspiracy. He showed me his initial contract with Margaret Chen, the emails, the payment records, the transformation of his reports from detailed to vague, text messages where Margaret demanded more information, and he claimed Jennifer was too careful to catch. It was all true. As horrifying as it was, he was telling the truth. But that left me with an impossible question. What was I going to do about it? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with impossible choices. Option 1, tell Jennifer everything. Watch her world crumble. Watch Emma lose her father. Risk my daughter's mental health. She'd been through so much already with her ex-boyfriend's violence. Option 2, keep the secret. Become complicit in David's deception. Live every day, knowing my daughter's marriage was founded on a lie. Option 3, find some middle ground. But what would that even look like? At 3 a.m. I heard crying. Soft, muffled sobs coming from down the hall. I got up and quietly walked toward the sound. It was coming from Emma's room. I gently pushed open her door. Emma was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" I whispered, sitting beside her. "I had a nightmare," she sniffled. "I dreamed that Daddy left and never came back." My heart shattered. "Oh, honey. Grandma, Daddy isn't going to leave, is he? Some kids at school, their dads left. I don't want my daddy to leave." I held her close. "Your daddy loves you very much, Emma. Promise he won't leave?" I couldn't make that promise. I had no idea what was going to happen. But I said, "Your daddy would never want to leave you. You're his whole world." That, at least, seemed to be true. After Emma fell back asleep, I made my decision. But I wasn't going to handle this alone. The next morning, I called my best friend Patricia. Patricia Henderson had been my colleague when I taught school. She'd also worked as a social worker for 15 years before becoming a teacher. If anyone could help me think through this moral maze, it was her. I drove to Patricia's house and told her everything. Her face grew more horrified with each detail. My God, Deborah. I don't even have words. I need advice, Pat. What do I do? Patricia was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, You need to verify everything independently. Right now, you only have David's version. What if he's still lying? What if this Margaret Chen doesn't exist? What if the change of heart story is just his latest manipulation? She was right. I couldn't make any decisions based solely on what David told me. My nephew works in private investigation, Patricia continued. Let me call him. He can look into this Margaret Chen, verify David's story, and see if there are any other secrets. Within 2 days, Patricia's nephew, a licensed private investigator named Marcus, had the full story. Margaret Chen was real. She was a 68-year-old woman living in Seattle, still grieving her son Michael, who died 7 years ago. Marcus had tracked down the original contract between her and David, confirmed the payments, and even found Margaret's recent frustrated emails demanding better results. But Marcus also discovered something else. Your son-in-law is telling the truth about stalling, Marcus reported. He's been avoiding Margaret's calls, giving her minimal information, and basically stonewalling the investigation for over a year. But here's the thing, Margaret is getting impatient. She's threatened to come to Portland herself to handle things personally, whatever that means. My blood ran cold. When? Her last email was 2 weeks ago. She said if David didn't provide results by the end of November, she'd consider their contract void and take matters into her own hands. It was November 15th. We had 2 weeks. There's one more thing, Marcus said, his expression grave. I found evidence that David's been secretly paying Margaret back. He sold his car last year, told your daughter it was because he wanted a more fuel-efficient vehicle. But he used that money to start repaying Margaret. He's been sending her $5,000 a month. I was stunned. He's been paying her back? Looks like it. He's returned about $60,000 so far. That changed everything. David wasn't just claiming to have changed. He was actively trying to make amends, even though Jennifer had no idea. I went home and confronted David with Marcus's findings. I was going to tell you about the payments, David insisted. I'm trying to end this completely. If I can pay Margaret back everything she gave me, plus interest, maybe she'll agree to drop the whole thing. You really think money will satisfy her? Her son is dead. She wants revenge, not repayment. Then what do I do? For the first time, I saw real fear in David's eyes. I can't let her hurt Jennifer. I won't. An idea was forming in my mind. A risky, possibly crazy idea. But maybe it could work. We're going to Seattle, I said. You and I. We're going to talk to Margaret Chen face to face. What? Deborah, that's the only way this ends, I interrupted. She needs to hear from Jennifer's mother. Mother to mother. Maybe I can make her understand. And if you can't, then we tell Jennifer everything and let her decide. But I have to try this first. For Emma's sake, if nothing else. David looked at me with something like hope. You'd do that? I'm not doing it for you, I said firmly. I'm doing it for my daughter and granddaughter. Don't confuse the two. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. And David? If this doesn't work, if Margaret can't be reasoned with, I'm telling Jennifer everything. Are you prepared for that? He nodded slowly. Yes, I am. The drive to Seattle took 4 hours. David and I barely spoke. I spent most of the time rehearsing what I'd say to Margaret Chen, though I knew no amount of preparation would be adequate for this conversation. Margaret lived in a modest house in a quiet Seattle suburb. The lawn was meticulously maintained, flowers blooming despite the November chill. A small memorial statue stood near the front door, undoubtedly for Michael. When Margaret answered the door, I was struck by how ordinary she looked. I don't know what I expected, some kind of villain, I suppose. But she was just a sad, elderly woman with grief etched into every line of her face. "Mrs. Chen," I said. "My name is Deborah Mitchell. I'm Jennifer Richardson's mother. This is David Richardson, her husband. We need to talk to you." Margaret's eyes widened. She looked at David with something between rage and confusion. "You brought her here? Her mother?" "Please," I said. "Just hear us out." Mother to mother. Something in my tone must have reached her, because she stepped aside to let us in. The house was a shrine to Michael. Photos everywhere, Michael as a baby, as a teenager, graduating college, smiling at various family gatherings. My heart ached for her loss, even as I was furious about what she'd done to my daughter. We sat in her living room. Margaret Chen stared at us, waiting. "I know everything," I began. "I know you hired David to marry Jennifer and destroy her life. I know why you did it. And I'm here to ask you as one mother to another to stop." "Stop?" Margaret's voice was bitter. "Your daughter took my son from me." "No, she didn't," I said firmly. "Your son's gambling addiction and violence took him from you. Jennifer tried to help him. When he became abusive, she did what she had to do to survive. She left. She abandoned him when he needed her most. She protected herself from abuse." My voice rose. "Mrs. Chen, would you want Jennifer to have stayed with your son if he was hurting her? Would you want any woman to endure violence out of obligation?" Margaret's face crumpled. "Michael wouldn't. He didn't mean. I'm sure he didn't mean to become addicted to gambling. I'm sure he didn't mean to become violent. But it happened. And Jennifer leaving him didn't cause his death. His choices caused his death." Tears were streaming down Margaret's face now. "Then why does it hurt so much? Why can't I stop blaming her?" "Because grief is looking for someone to blame," I said gently. "And it's easier to blame Jennifer than to accept that sometimes good people make terrible choices that destroy them." "But Margaret, destroying Jennifer won't bring Michael back. It won't ease your pain. It will just create more pain, more suffering, more broken families." "She has a daughter," Margaret whispered. "Emma." "Yes. A 10-year-old girl who loves her father. A girl who would be devastated if her family fell apart." Margaret looked at David, really looked at him for the first time. "You love them, don't you? It wasn't supposed to happen that way." "No," David admitted. "But yes, I love them. More than I ever thought possible. And I would do anything, give up anything to protect them, including returning all my money." "I've been trying to pay you back," David said. "I know it doesn't erase what I did, but I want to make amends." Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to a drawer in her desk. She pulled out a thick folder. I recognized it as a contract. "This is our agreement," she said. She walked to the fireplace, turned on the gas flames, and dropped the folder into the fire. We watched in silence as it burned. "I'm tired," Margaret said quietly. "I'm so tired of being angry, of plotting revenge. It hasn't brought me any peace. If anything, I feel worse, more empty." "Mrs. Chen," I said carefully, "would you consider talking to someone, a grief counselor?" "I've been in therapy for years," she admitted. "My therapist has been telling me that revenge wouldn't help." I didn't want to believe her. And now? Now I'm looking at a mother defending her daughter, and a man who was supposed to destroy a family but ended up building one instead. And I'm wondering, what have I been doing? She turned to David. "I don't forgive you for what you did. You took money to ruin an innocent woman's life." "I know." David said. I'll never forgive myself either. But, Margaret continued, I don't want the rest of your money. I don't want updates. I don't want anything from you except one thing. What's that? Be a good father to that little girl. Be a good husband to Jennifer. And if there's any shred of decency in you, tell her the truth someday. She deserves to know who she married. On the drive back to Portland, David and I had the hardest conversation. You heard her? I said. Jennifer deserves the truth. I know, David said. But how do I tell her? How do I explain? We decided together that I would tell Jennifer first, with David present. She deserved to hear it from someone she could trust completely. That evening, after Emma went to bed, I asked Jennifer to sit down with David and me. Honey, I began, I have something to tell you. It's going to be hard to hear. I told her everything. David sat beside her, silent, as I explained about Margaret Chen, the contract, the surveillance, the transformation. Jennifer's face went through 100 emotions: shock, disbelief, rage, hurt, betrayal. When I finished, she turned to David. Is this true? Every word, he whispered. Jennifer, I am so sorry. She slapped him. Hard. Then she started crying. 3 years, she sobbed. 3 years of lies. The love wasn't a lie, David said desperately. Emma, our family, none of that was a lie. How can I believe anything you say? You can't, David admitted. I've destroyed any right to your trust. But I will spend the rest of my life earning it back, if you'll let me. Jennifer looked at me. Mom, what do I do? Only you can answer that, honey, I said. But I'll tell you what I learned from this whole nightmare: people can change. Not always, not even usually. But sometimes, David could have stayed silent, could have kept lying. Instead, he's been trying to make amends, even when no one knew. That doesn't excuse what he did. No, it doesn't. But it might be a foundation to build something real on. Or you might decide you can't forgive this, and that's okay too. Either way, I'm with you. Jennifer asked David to leave that night. He went to a hotel. For the next 2 weeks, she struggled with her decision. She consulted a therapist, talked with friends, spent hours just thinking. Finally, she made her choice. I need you to go to counseling, she told David. Both individual therapy and marriage counseling with me. For at least 2 years. I'll do whatever you want, David said. And you need to completely change careers. No more private investigation. Ever. Already done. I took a full-time IT position last week. And Emma can never know. Ever. When she's an adult, maybe, but not now. This would destroy her. Agreed. And David, one more lie, one more secret. Even a small one. And we're done. Completely. Do you understand? Yes, he said. I promise you, Jennifer. Complete honesty from now on. That was 3 years ago. David kept his promise. He went to therapy twice a week. He changed jobs. He became brutally, sometimes painfully honest about everything, from his fears to his mistakes to his insecurities. It wasn't easy. There were days Jennifer couldn't stand to look at him, days she wanted to give up. But slowly, carefully, they rebuilt their marriage, this time on truth instead of lies. Last month, Emma turned 13. At her birthday party, I watched David and Jennifer together. They were laughing at something Emma said, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on his knee. A real family. Grandma, Emma said, running over to me. Aren't you glad you moved in with us? More than you know, sweetheart, I said. Would I have made the same choices if I could do it over? I honestly don't know. There are days I wonder if I should have exposed David immediately, spared Jennifer the years of living with someone who'd betrayed her. But then I see Emma with her father, see Jennifer's hard-won happiness, and I think maybe, just maybe, we made the right call. Here's what I learned through all of this: people are complicated. They're capable of both terrible things and genuine change. Justice isn't always clean or satisfying. Sometimes healing requires mercy alongside accountability. And family? Real family isn't just about blood or legal bonds. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Margaret Chen started attending a grief support group. She sends a Christmas card every year now, not to David, but to Emma. She's rebuilding her own life, finding peace in ways that don't involve revenge. As for me, I'm still in Portland, still living with my daughter's family, still watching over them. Not because I don't trust David, though I'd be lying if I said I completely do, but because I love them. All of them. Life is messy. Families are complicated. And sometimes the road to redemption is long, painful, and uncertain. But it's possible. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that even in our darkest moments, even when we discover terrible truths, there's always a choice to respond with only anger or to make room for the possibility of change. We're all imperfect people, trying our best, making mistakes, hopefully learning and growing. And sometimes that's enough.